Welcome to the Power of Design podcast. My name is Jack Osa. I'm an architect, born and raised in Colombia, South America. Years ago, I migrated to the United States to follow my dreams, and today I'm the founder and principal of Aia Studio, a multidisciplinary architectural design firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. In this podcast, we talk about design, business, creativity, and the inspiration we need to create an exciting and powerful built environment. In today's episode of the Power of Design podcast, I have a very special guest. Her name is Graciela Carrillo. Like myself, she is an architect, also from Colombia. She immigrated to the United States in 2003 and today is a senior manager at Nassau BOCES Facilities Services, which she is in charge of coordinating the school's capital and operational projects. Graciela has committed almost a decade of volunteer leadership service to the American Institute of Architects, AIA. She has been involved within the AIA at the local, state, and national level, currently serving as an AIA New York State representative for the AIA National Strategic Council. She is also a leader in the architecture industry, providing a voice for women and immigrant architects in the United States, encouraging and supporting this community in their path towards licensure and professional development. This is my conversation with Graciela. Hey Graciela, welcome to the Power of Design podcast. How are you today?
Hi Jack, I'm very good. Thank you so much for inviting me to this amazing podcast.
Sure, I'm very excited to talk to you, mainly because was my wife who introduced me to you. You know, I was having breakfast one day and she said, "Did you see there is a Colombian girl and she's doing some great things with the AIA? You need to talk to her." And I was like, "What?" So she sent me your, I think it was your LinkedIn profile, and then we connected, and you know, you replied, and it was really good to talk to you that day. You know, it's not every day that you meet somebody that is also from your home country, that you have similar backgrounds. So when you talk to each other, you feel like, you know, you've been going through the same journey at the same time.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, Graciela, tell me about yourself. You know, I know you're from Colombia, but tell me about, you know, where did you grow up and kind of your journey from you coming from Colombia to United States.
Yeah, so it's a long journey, but I'm going to try to be really short. So I come from Bogota, Colombia. Mm-hmm. I was born and raised there. I went to architectural school in Bogota. And when I graduated, I worked for a few companies. And the last one that I worked there was actually for the government. Mm-hmm. I worked for the IDU, which is the Institute of Development for the city, for the capital city, under Peñalosa mayor at that time. And I always, you know, I always was one of those architects that is more inclined to construction and construction management than actually design. And mm-hmm. That's because of my family background. I grew up in a family of engineers, civil engineers, my dad, my brothers. So I was supposed to be a civil engineer.
Right.
And and then I was like, but I don't want to do what everybody's doing. So let's look for an alternative. And the alternative was architecture. Mm-hmm. But at the end, I ended up working for engineers all my life.
Right.
So that's basically where I come from. And in Colombia, I worked there for a while as an architect. And I was managing a lot of projects for the city, infrastructure projects, roads, parks, pedestrian ways, a lot of really interesting projects at that time. But unfortunately, there was a really bad situation during that time. My immediate boss got killed, and
wow,
that really traumatized me. I was very young. I was maybe, 25 years old. And that really hit me. Like, I'm not safe. The reality at that time in the country was not really good. It's much better now.
Right.
So I decided, you know what, I'm going to try to leave the country. And that's what I did. I applied for a few jobs here. I had the advantage, though, and I need to make this clear. My brother he's a civil engineer, and he was already here in the States working as an engineer.
Got it.
So that to me was a given. Like, I at least had someone in this country that could help me in getting interviews. A lot of immigrants, they don't have that privilege.
Oh yeah, that's a big help.
That's a huge help. So actually, a lot of them reach out to me like, can you please contact me, with other firms? We know that you're super involved with like architectural firms in the States. And I do that all the time. I try to connect as many people as I can because I was privileged and I didn't have to go through the hassle of trying to get a firm to hire me. So I do want to help them because I know that that's really difficult. So anyway, going back to those days, I got a job in Long Island, New York, with an engineering firm, again, engineering and architectural. So I got my work visa, I moved here, and I worked for that firm for probably 17 years.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah, a lot of time. I'm not that young anymore when you start adding the numbers.
And what made you leave a firm after 17 years?
So I learned a lot there, of course. I learned about the business of not only architecture, but engineering, because I did learn a lot of engineering and I worked in engineering projects.
What type of engineering?
Roads, marinas, bulkheads, design of all of that.
Wow.
And also in construction management. So it was a really interesting job because of the diversity of the work. And I left the company because at some point I felt that I didn't have room to grow more as a professional.
Right.
Like, I reached that career plateau, sort of, which actually is funny. I'm giving a lecture in an hour from now, and I'm going to talk specifically about that career plateau.
Yeah.
Yeah. And promotion and salary increase and all of these topics that nobody wants to talk about. And so I realized that was happening. And, I said, I need to look for other opportunities. And this opportunity came about a year and a half ago with this agency that I work now, is Nassau BOCES. And Nassau BOCES is an educational agency that is funded by the state, by New York State. So we own a lot of schools. We own 13 schools of special education. Mm-hmm. And we owned 3 schools of technical education. So I'm in the facilities department providing all the, facilities services for our own schools, but we also provide services for the Nassau County school districts, which is a lot. It's a lot of schools in Nassau County here in Long Island. So we have about, I would say, $100 million budget a year. And my role is to manage capital projects, which are the big projects for like either renovations, additions, new buildings for the schools. But I also manage operational projects. So that's
right.
more like internally operation of the buildings and maintenance of the buildings. So it's completely different of what I was doing before at the previous company. Before it was more like municipal work. This one here, this experience is just schools, which is a new market for me because
right.
I never had that experience before. So I'm learning a lot about school design and school operations and managing all the consultants and all the contractors, vendors that, take part of those huge projects or small projects. So that's what I'm really excited about. It's a new market for me, a new experience. I'm learning a lot. And I feel like I'm helping all these kids that really need our help, all the these kids in special education. And this goes along with the mission in my life, which I think we will talk about that later. I'm very passionate about community service and helping others.
Mm-hmm.
So now that I'm doing this work for schools, for these special education kids, I feel like it goes along my mission in life, which is helping other people in need.
That's amazing. I actually just started a project for special needs school that they're
Mm-hmm.
actually in Boston, and
Okay.
they're opening a location here. So we're starting to work on that project here in
Oh,
Charlotte.
that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. I'll tell you more about that um, after the podcast. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I would
Um,
love to hear that.
so, what do you think were the main skills that set you up for this new role? What kind of things did you learn through the engineering experience that qualify you to do this type of work, which, as you mentioned, is very different, but is still within the same realm of, construction and design?
I think the main skills that I developed over the years, besides technical, of course, is those soft skills that you don't learn in school.
Yeah.
And those soft skills, mainly I learned them through my involvement with AIA. And what were those skills? Like communication skills, leadership skills, managing contracts, being able to complete projects on time and achieve, milestones with no issues. So it was a combination between learning how the business work and be proactive and having a good performance, but also learning to communicate and to connect with people.
Oh, yeah.
So something that I realized, I always thought that my weakest points or my weakest areas were communication skills, because my accent,
Sure.
the language barrier has been always huge for me, because I always feel like I don't have the vocabulary that I wish,
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I feel like my vocabulary is super simple, and I'm like, I wish I could speak more sophisticated.
Yeah.
and plus the accent, because not
Sure.
everybody is used to our accent, and sometimes they struggle.
Yeah.
So I thought that was one of my weakest areas. And at some point, one of my bosses, one of the principals, he was like, you know what? I want you to go to the meetings with the clients more, because they love to talk to you. They actually request you as the contact person for the project. And I think that's great that you can connect with them. So I realized, you know what, even though I have such a big accent, and sometimes I speak and people don't really understand well, or I speak bad grammar, whatever.
Right.
I can connect with people very easy.
Sure. Yeah, I completely identify with what you're saying, because I wanted to start a podcast forever, and I didn't do it because I was very self-conscious of my accent. I was like, man, who's gonna want to listen to me? I don't pronounce well, and they don't know what I'm saying. But that was the exact reason why I did it. It pushed me to go to the other side, and I've learned a lot. It improves my communication style. And the other thing, to your point about having let's say a limited vocabulary, which I feel exactly the same, I really think it's an advantage for us, because we don't have room for fluff.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot just speak all this long explanation. We just go straight to the point because we don't have anything else. And sometimes in communications, you just need to be clear and direct. And that's the best way to communicate.
Yeah, you're totally right about that. And I never thought about it. But yeah, so I think that a combination of all of that made me the best candidate for this job. Plus, I met my boss right now through AIA involvement. I was the president of the Long Island chapter, and he's one of the members at Long Island chapter. So we were doing together some collaboration between the agency Nassau BOCES and AIA Long Island. And we worked together for like a year and a half on AIA stuff.
Yes.
And then he's like, well, I have this opening here, and I think you would fit perfectly, even though I didn't have experience in schools. I was like, but Tony, I have no experience in schools. He's like,
sure,
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You have the perfect profile for the person that will manage these projects.
Yeah, sure. Can you give a quick explanation of what the AIA is? Because, most of the audience of the podcast are, construction people, brokers, real estate, that they're not familiar with AIA.
Okay, so yeah, AIA is the American Institute of Architects.
Mm-hmm.
And we are an organization with about 94,000 members. And our members are licensed architects, non-licensed architects, meaning that they are probably in the path of licensure or just are not interested in getting a license, and also allies. So any other type of firm or business, they can also join us at allies. And what we do at the organization is pretty much advocate for the profession and for the professionals on different levels.
Perfect.
And we have chapters across all the states and even international. We also have chapters abroad. And like I said, here, for instance, in New York State, we have 13 different chapters. And my chapter is Long Island. Long Island is 75 years old, so it's a very old organization.
Wow.
Mainly white men. We have to be clear with that. A more diverse representation has grown over the past 10 years, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So numbers are changing, but from 122,000 registered architects in the country is the total number, and from those 20% are women. So
wow.
That's just to tell you how small is the percentage of women
Sure.
within the business, the profession.
Yeah.
And forget about immigrants. That's really a very small, like for instance, women, Latinas architects, registered architects is less than 1%.
Wow.
Same with Asian, people of color. People of color is 5%. Asian is, I believe, 3%. So it's a very small percentage of minorities. But with the programs that the association or the organization is building, there is a lot of equity, diversity, inclusion programs. So the numbers are changing. And of course, we're not there, but ultimately that's the goal.
Awesome.
The Power of Design podcast is brought to you by OSA Studio, a multidisciplinary design firm focused on creating impactful experiences through the power of design. We partner with our clients to create buildings, interior spaces, brands, and strategies that help you deliver a successful project. As a minority-owned firm, we are committed to building a diverse platform of curious and driven design professionals so we can together pursue our full potential. For more information, please visit us at www.osastudio.com.
So tell me about your experience with the AIA, because I've seen you everywhere. You appear in many different conferences and podcasts, and you're involved in book projects and a lot of these things that, I know you don't have to do this. You do it because you want to do it. And you're making a big impact, not only in the profession, but opening doors for a lot of people that are behind you, as you talk about women and minorities trying to break into the profession. Tell me about your involvement and what kind of things have you been working on through the AIA?
Yeah, so I started early when I came to this country. I felt like I really needed to connect with network of architects because the firm that I worked was mainly engineering. That's why I joined the organization, and then I just started attending the events. You know, that people always say, "But what are the benefits that I get from this organization? I'm paying a annually fee, but what are really the benefits? The benefits that you get is if you are involved, if you really want to get involved. That's when
Right.
you get the benefits. You can't just sit down and wait till it happens." So I just started doing that, just showing up. And at some point, the board of directors of Long Island asked me if I wanted to join the board as an associate director, meaning I didn't have a license at that time. So there was one opening for someone that didn't have a license. And of course, I said yes. I'm like, this is like the opportunity, to do something. And when I started like that, then I got my license, of course. But in that time that I started getting involved, I realized, you know what? I don't see young people. It's really like not old, but sort of like you never saw like
No,
20-year-old
it's
people
old. It's
attending.
old. It's okay. Say it.
And so I was like, you know what? I don't see that. Let's open an emerging professionals committee. So I pair with my friend at that time, Jake Rivalsi. He was also at the board. He was licensed at that time. And both of us just opened the committee. So we started doing a lot of like events for young people, like happy hours and creating, different alternatives to like the regular monthly chapter meetings. So that committee was created in 2015, and to this day is super successful. There are like 10 people in that committee actively doing different type of programs. I'm not chairing that committee anymore, of course, but I'm very happy that other chairs have stepped up, and keep the leadership within the committee. And then after that, I also noticed there's no women. Like I'm the only one and maybe two that attend the meetings. So where are the women? So I created the Women in Architecture committee with my friend Ebru Sulker. I told her, let's do this, because you always need to team up with someone. You can't do everything by yourself. So my theory is like just build your team, inspire others, and then in between all of us, we'll put this together. And that's what we did with the Women in Architecture committee. That was in 2018. And to this day, I'm still chairing that one because that's like my baby. And we do a lot of events throughout the year for women, but of course, men attend those events too. But at least we are providing that space for women that they didn't want to be part of the regular chapter meetings. So that was a good thing. And then besides that, I also got involved on the national level recently. Well, I finished I was the president for the last 2 years, 2021 and 2020 and 2021, which, by the way, in 75 years, I was the third woman to be president and the first Latina to be president. Wow. So that's just to give you a picture of the demographics.
Yes, congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you. So I finished that term last year in December. And this year I was elected as the New York State representative for the Strategic Council. And the Strategic Council is a group of people at the national level. We work directly with the National Board of Directors, and we are in charge of the future of the organization, pretty much.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I would love to connect you here with the local Women in Architecture chapter, which, they're people that I know, they're in my community. And it's a small group, but they're very excited and engaged. And I know they have their events, and it will be really nice to just get you here and have you share your experience.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I
would love that.
Yeah. So I'm curious to learn about why do you do this? You don't have to do these things, and that's a lot of work, a lot of coordination, a lot
Yeah.
of drive. What do you think drives you to make this happen?
I think it started because of all the struggles that I had when I came to this country, that I didn't have that support network. I truly didn't have it. And I made a lot of mistakes. Even going through my licensure, I made a lot of mistakes that cost me a lot of money, because I didn't have that advice, and I didn't know how to find the resources. So whatever I did, it wasn't the right way. And then, oh my God, I gotta go this way now because it's New York State and it's specific requirements. So every time I think about everything that I struggle with, like, for instance, the difference in culture, cultural bias, language barrier, all of that. I see people that they're going through those obstacles the same way that I was going in the past. And that's when I realized, you know what? I didn't have that help. Now that I know how to navigate the system and what to do, I'm going to be helping those out. And that's when we decided 3 years ago to create the Immigrant Architects Coalition, which is another group that is specifically and is outside of AIA. We are not attached to AIA, but the three co-founders, we are all AIA members.
Mm-hmm.
So it started as an initiative presenting at the AIA National Conference in Vegas. We had a session there that was called Immigrant Architects Prospering in US. So we told our story, and then we had a bunch of people joining us at that event, and everybody, they didn't want to leave the room. They needed so much help. So that's when we created that coalition. And
Wow.
what we do with that coalition is just speak at different states, cities, to send the message to others that we are there, that this is what we have done. One of them, he's owner of his own firm. So we have a lot of tips that we can help them out. And lately, we are writing a book, which you are part of that. So I can't wait for
Thank
the
you.
release. And we are telling the stories of 23, 24 very successful immigrant architects. And they are all really different, and they will help anybody that is struggling with different topics like work visa, mental health, leadership skills, culturals. It's a lot of different stories. So I'm sure that book is going to help a lot of people. But why do I do it? It's just because I feel like my mission is to help whoever I can help. I don't have kids. I never wanted to have kids. And now I understand why I didn't want that, because if I had kids, then my time would be for my kids.
Sure.
And now I have all this time that I'm super excited to share with others. And that's basically the base of everything.
That's amazing. Like, I remember 15 years ago, I came to this country, I graduated from architecture school in Colombia, worked for about a year. When I came here, probably the first 10 years, I never knew about other architects. I never knew how to do things. Like, if I had a book where other immigrants were telling the story, nobody told me about how to do your IDP, how to take your test, what to do. And I used to work at a farm where the people were really nice, but they were probably 50 years and or older, and I was probably 25 years old, so the age gap was huge.
Yeah.
And they took care of me. They gave me a job. They helped me with my working visa. They were very nice, but nobody ever say, hey, there is a thing called the AIA, which you can join if you want to, and if you want to advance your career, you should do this. They never said that, and I don't think they even thought about it. It was just didn't cross their mind. So all those things I had to learn on my own, and it took me very long time. I'm thankful for internet, because that's when I started like, oh, there's AIA, and I started showing up to AIA events, meeting people, learning about how to become a registered architect. And that was huge for me to get that information, but it took me a long time and it was very painful to get it. So the fact that you're doing that to facilitate that for others, the impact you're going to have in, I don't know how many, could be thousands of millions of immigrants' lives, it's amazing.
I hope so.
Because I always say the right information at the right time can change somebody's life.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be this great opportunity or this great amount of money. The right information where they are. This is what you need to do. That, like, the next step is this one.
Yeah.
That's huge. And that's something that I didn't have that available right now. And that's one of the things that I want to do now that I'm in a position to give. And I remember where I was like, man, I want to help others because there is so much talent, passion, energy from an immigrant perspective that, we know what that is. We came with all these dreams and we have all this energy and we're willing to do whatever it takes to succeed. That if you give a person an opportunity and you show them the right path, they're going to do, 100 times what you expect they're going to do.
Yeah, that's what I hope so. You
Yeah.
know? And it's not only help on like the licensure process. Sometimes they contact me because they're going through a really hard time in their own work environment and they have a work visa. And so they're like looking for advice just to be able to relate to them and tell them, listen, I was in your same position.
Right.
And this is what I'm telling you, you should be doing because this worked for me or this didn't work for me. So that's the beauty of everything, that all of us with our previous experiences, we can not only help people to get licensed, but also help them in their daily life when they're struggling at work because of different issues, So I think that's the power of the coalition.
Yeah, and I can relate to that. I remember many times in a professional setting where I didn't know what to do and I didn't know who to ask. I didn't know. And sometimes when you're an immigrant and you're on your first years, you really want to fit in. You really want to be part of the culture and whatever is happening. And sometimes the attitude we take is just let me listen and learn. And I remember many times finding myself in meetings where everybody was talking about something and I saw the problem from a very different perspective. I was like, well, I don't agree with this. I think it should be this way. But I didn't say anything because I thought I was wrong because I was missing something. I was like, well, maybe I don't get it. Maybe. And it took me years to realize that that's exactly what I bring to the table. The different perspective.
Yep.
The other opinion. And now I feel very free to just say whatever I think, because now that, after many years being here and now I'm a US citizen, I'm a business owner. Now this is my country today. And I feel very empowered and energized by just being who I am and bringing my differences and my different opinion to the table, because that's what the community needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
And one of the things I love to do, after I, take my business out of the ground, is I love to empower people at the other level, which is you can start your own business. It's not that hard, because we come with all these dreams, and as long as you gain decent experience, if you learn those soft skills that you're talking about, which are so important, communication, leadership, negotiation skills, time management. There are all these things that nobody's going to teach you. You can learn on your own. And once you get those skills under your belt, there should be a lot more design architecture firms by immigrants.
Yes.
That you have what it takes. We have the power, the energy, and the value that the community needs just to keep growing. But sometimes we don't know how to do it, or we don't know we can. We think we think they have something we don't have, but we totally have it.
Yeah, that's exactly what my peer Jungkook, one of the co-founders of the coalition, he just presented at the conference at AI National with other two architects, immigrants too, that opened their own business. And the session was just about that, how you as an immigrant can open a business. So you need to talk to them. I'm
Oh
gonna
yeah,
contact them
I
with that.
love to talk to him. Yeah, I want to
That's
have
great.
him on the podcast for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We'll make that contact.
Yeah. So, what do you think is the biggest challenge female and minority architects are facing today?
It's a lot. Like we can talk about hours, but just to summarize, females in general, we know the struggle is the balance between managing their families and work. Especially during COVID, a lot of females just went through burned out because they had to take care of the kids and school and homework, everything remote. But then at the same time, they needed to be, working full time. So that balance is very crucial. Firms lately, they tend to be a little bit more aware that sometimes women need more like time, or the time should be flexible so they can perform well, but at the same time they can take care of family business.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I think the most hard is for a woman. Even though I don't have kids, I heard about that a lot. So that's still very important. The gender inequality, of course, that's another factor. But that's more on the long term. We hope that it's going to change. We know that women, and this is based on surveys and data, women for the same exact position that a man is doing, they probably could get between 13 and 16% less salary.
Sure.
So that inequality right there is really important to be aware that we need to change that. And as part of that, early this year, I developed a survey. I created a website that is called Powerful Speeches, Women in Architecture. And I created a survey with one of my friends, Diane Lee. She's in Washington. And we survey about 800 women across the states, different positions, different years of experience, different type of companies. And we created this survey for salaries, just women. Because when you go to these national survey salaries, there's just an average salary. It doesn't tell you if it's a man or a woman.
Right.
And we know that 13 to 16% disparity exists.
Mm-hmm.
So we created just the women salary just to know what we're making across the states. And then the next phase of that survey, it's to include men so we can compare apples to apples.
Right.
We can see for this specific position in this city, it doesn't need to be the same firm, how much a woman is making, how much a man is making.
Right. And I've seen the AIA compensation report, but they don't break it into genders. No. I think if you do that, you're kind of accepting that is happening.
Yeah.
So that's why they don't do it.
That's exactly what we want to do it, because I was like, you know what? And I don't really understand. And I always say this. Why is a taboo talk about salaries in the States? In another country, you can ask your coworker, how much are you making? And they'll tell you. And there's no problem with that. And I learned that here, you cannot make that question because it's like insulting. And I don't like, why?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I know.
So that's why we're like, let's do that survey. Let's talk about salaries.
And I think that conversation about money is also why a lot of people don't start their own business, because a business is about money. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have the conversation, you're not comfortable talking about it, you never learn how to use it or how to manage it, then you always stay in that place where it's not okay to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
so that's totally well. That was just one part of the question, women. Okay. Next part of the question, you mentioned the immigrants or minority architects. So for that, that's a different whole spectrum of difficulties. The language barrier, the cultural bias, the legal, ramifications of being in another country, and if you have a work visa, if you have a asylum visa, it's a whole different spectrum that immigrants specifically go through. So that could be on like another hour conversation on what the struggles are for minorities coming here.
Sure, I can relate to that, and now I'm at the point where, and at the other level, which is as a minority business owner, what are those barriers? Which they are there, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. So
It's
that's why you need to talk to Yoon Lok,
Yeah.
and you both are going to share a lot of experience.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So what do you think, or what do you wish is gonna be the rest of your work? How do you envision yourself and what you're doing for women, for immigrants, for the community, in the next 5 or 10 years?
Well, basically what I envision is everything that I do is for a collective purpose. We work together towards a goal, and the impact that I'm having on others, that same impact is going to replicate,
Yeah.
from those people that I help, they're going to go and help other people. So, and that's what architecture is. Architecture is a collective effort to resolve different issues: climate action, resilient design, sustainability, social justice. So all of these topics, if we approach them as a collective, that's the way that we're going to make an impact on the community. So that's how I envision in the future for what I'm doing, is just keep replicating, programs, initiatives to just help people to overcome different obstacles, so we can all then come together and resolve the community issue, the global community issues, which are huge, including health crisis, so we just need to come together and work towards a future society from all perspectives: environmental, social, the building environment.
That's amazing. Well, Graciela, thank you so much for your time today. I'm very empowered and energized by your story. And now I want to wake up tomorrow and break the wall. That's amazing, and I really look forward to stay connected with you, and maybe do things together and see what if we join forces, what can we do.
Thank you so much, Jack, for having me. I think this is a great space, and what you're doing is really amplifying the voices of different perspectives in the business, and that's good to hear that you're providing that space so we can replicate our message to others. So thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Power of Design podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review if you like this content, and find us online at thepowerofdesignpodcast.com. I invite you to join my mission to become a better version of yourself through the power of design.